We're going into some of the market solutions. What do we do in these certain situations where times are difficult? How do we leverage?
I got one.
Yeah. All right, Mikey, drum roll. Let's go.
All right. So we talked about a couple things today. You just mentioned equity is at an all-time high.
Yes.
We mentioned, people might be losing their jobs. And then this article also mentioned that, probably because of a multitude of reasons, people are going to start relying more on credit.
Yeah.
So if that sounds like you're relying more on credit and you have equity in your home, tap into it, cash out refi, pay off that credit balance, roll it into the mortgage.
So the first question someone asked is, I'm going to have to do a cash out refinance at like 7%. Yes, the answer is yes. You know why the answer is yes? Because your credit card rate's 30, or it's 20, or it's 15, or whatever. So it's still going to be cheaper in the end, even if it doesn't seem cheaper right now. And it creates a converts some that's non-tax deductible into something that is.
Yeah. And let's go with history too. Another historical fact is consumer debt it's at its all-time high. It's over $1 trillion, right?
Wow.
So that is the highest we've ever seen. So obviously we need to find a solution for those, for a lot of people. Maybe right now it seems good because, again, there's plenty of jobs. We're working 2 jobs, but you get tired of working 2 jobs. Would you agree? Especially,
I've never worked 40 hours a week.
There have been a number of situations in the past where, we've talked with people and maybe they made some consumer purchases that they, let's say, privately would regret: a motorhome, a boat, a third car, or something like that. But then, you know what? The house also gained in equity at the time. Let's let the house do the work. Yeah. So my RV payment is $1,500 over here. But if I pay my RV off and I have it as part of my new mortgage as either a HELOC, a second loan, or a cash out, maybe my monthly out of pocket only goes up by $700, but motorhome's paid off. So that's an arbitrage of $800 in net gain, or net savings, I should say. Yeah. So you get to keep it, or you could just sell it and not have it anymore. That's fine too.
Yeah. What a bad example of working 2 jobs asking Mikey that, huh? Some of the solutions of how you can actually tap into your home equity is you get what's called a line of credit or a second lien on your property, which is a HELOC, which stands for a home equity line of credit, or a HE loan, a home equity loan. Mm-hmm. And there is some differences. A HELOC is going to be like an open end, similar to a credit card, right? And the great thing about having something like that is there's pros and cons to both. Okay. So on a HELOC, what'll happen is when you borrow against what you draw. So let's say you get approved and it's $150,000. The cool thing is if you only draw $50,000 of that, you're making payments on that $50,000.
Got it.
Okay. Whereas with the HE loan, when you draw the $150, you're drawing the whole $150 and you're making payments on that $150.
So with the HE loan, it has to be a lump sum.
That's correct.
Okay.
Then the other difference is, with the HELOC, it's similar like a credit card. The interest rate, how sometimes right now the Fed is increasing that rate.
Yeah.
Well, you already know you're going to pay a little more for that, right? Whereas a HELOC, it's got a fixed payment.
Now, here's something that maybe a silver lining that kind of might go past some people is that if the Fed is going to be done right now or going to be done soon, then you would be getting a line of credit maybe at the perceivable top. And then when rate cuts do kick in and happen, then the debt servicing of that would be less and
That's
lower.
A great point, Andy. That, you know what, I didn't even think about, but you bring a great point.
So how would someone know which one to choose, though?
It all just depends on what you're comfortable with, right? And obviously, when you're providing your documentation and we see your financial situation, whoever you're using, they have to look at those things, and you'll have to consider what your affordability is at that point in time.
I know you mentioned the rate with the HELOC, it kind of changed like a credit card. What about with the HE loan? Is that just fixed?
Typically fixed rate, correct. It's typically a fixed rate. And the great thing about it, what most people don't understand is when you use these things, if you're using them for you can use them, a HE loan or a HELOC, you can use it for anything. You can use it to purchase another investment property. You can use it to do renovations in your home, do debt consolidation. And here's a great thing about those, right? People think, well, I have a 2.875, but why do I want to get a 12 or 13%, interest rate on that? When you're getting those funds, if you blend the rate, you're probably going to be like a 6.5, versus a credit card where you're more like at 24, 16.
Yeah. Something outrageous.
It's proportionate rate cost.
Exactly.
So you may have a $500,000 loan at 3%.
Yeah.
And then you have a $150,000 HE loan that's at, let's just say, 12
Yeah.
or 10, then the combination of them being different balances and at different rates are blended together, and it's actually cumulatively a lot lower than you might think.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the other benefit of it, if you use it for home renovations, the interest will become a tax write-off for you. But you'll have to talk to a CPA, okay? You'll have to talk to them. But where credit card debt is, they're not. You know, you could be paying into that as many years or whatever. You'll never make it a write-off. Yeah. So it's got a lot of pros and cons to it. The only con is, you know, the rates are higher, and it is what it is. The cool thing is, like you mentioned, Andy, the rate, as we know, hey, well, the Fed's already saying it may just be, you know, another 0.25% rate hike. And then it's probably going to be the peak before we start seeing, you know,
well,
rates
actually,
come down.
let me challenge you with this.
Okay, perfect.
So with the, I'm kind of thinking right now, why wouldn't someone just do a cash out refi on the first position instead of doing a HE loan and being in second position? I get it, the HE loan is fixed, but I'm assuming, I mean, the rate's going to be higher opposed to just doing a cash out refi.
It may be, and it may not be. This is why you got to talk to, this is why people need to talk to you or to Will or to Brian, is because it may not be, because one will win out. One will be cheaper. The blended rate of doing the HELOC or HE loan in addition to your first you have, and or doing the cash out. Maybe you do a cash out at 7.5%. Yeah. Okay, great. But if your blended rate is 6.5, instead of 7.5, it's 6.5. Then it's actually better to do the HE loan.
Okay, I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Because again, there's a way to factor it. Because let's do a real extreme example. Let's say you have a $900,000 first, and only $100,000 second.
Okay.
Well, if you do $1 million cash out at 7.5, that may be like exorbitant compared to a $100,000 loan that's at 12, but your $900,000 is at 3%. It might only be 4.5 or 5. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's scenario by scenario.
And the other way to think about it too is let's just say you even owe 700 or 900,000, right? We're not going to refinance the first. What maybe a lot of people want to just say is, I just need 50,000. Brian just did one for 55,000. In that case, even if it's a $400,000 or $500,000 loan, it doesn't make sense to actually refinance everything for a $50,000. Right? Because when you pay off that $50,000 debt, it may be only, you know, $700-800, where we're going to increase the payment by $2,000. Remember earlier we talked about people's mortgage payments has increased by 60 to 74%.
Yeah.
Well, that would be the typical factor in this situation.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys handled my challenge really well.
Yeah, fast.
He said the
It's
word
just
challenge, but I didn't
right?
feel challenged.
Yeah.
No, so there's a line in the sand, right? There's a mathematical line where people go, oh, it makes sense to do it this way versus that way. And then I'm going to put this on the table too, because I know I drive around town. I see it happening. I see garage conversions happening. I see ADU, second story builds on first story homes that are approved, or a house in the back with a separate drive. I mean, they're still happening. So despite other shows where we've talked about labor costs being high for builders and material costs still remaining elevated, some have reduced, shortage of people to find. Look, homeowners who have the permittability and the equity are using that equity to invest in the long-term future of the house.
Yeah, actually, I have a buddy of mine. I'm going to shout out Greenwich Construction. Shout out my boy Cliff. But yeah, they just got done building a 2-unit ADU or something like that. It was a 2-story, somewhere around here. So I mean, it's still happening, and they're staying busy. They're doing these projects quite often.
Well, the cool thing about it is we just did an $85,000 line of credit, and the payment was $950, right? And they needed only $75,000 to convert their garage into a 1-bedroom, and that's here actually in Sumbo in Eastlake. Well, not Eastlake, but Chula Vista, Sumbo.
Yeah,
and they're renting out that place for $2,100.
Oh, right? Wow.
So
it's costing them $950 and they're renting it for $2,100. So they're cleaning $1,150 a month.
Exactly.
That's great.
And that's temporary. That's just temporary right now. Those are just funds that are temporary because, as in this case, they chose to go with the HELOC, right? And what's cool about it, it's like a credit card. So once they use some of the money to pay it down, they're actually paying down that line of credit, and they'll be able to use it multiple times.
Yeah, reuse it.
Yeah.
So that's good. People use home equity lines of credit or the HE loan for investing in a down payment to buy another place. I know there's some new programs coming out for multifamily soon, right? I think Fannie Mae just announced there's is it 5% down?
Yeah, 5% for multi-units up to 40 units, which is phenomenal. Yeah. That's going to be another great thing. So if we're looking, hey, you know what? I'm looking to become somewhat of an investor, and this is my first time buying a home, and I only have 5%. Typically before it was 25, 20, 20% down, and FHA could have been 10, 15% down, and you still have that mortgage insurance, right? So now it's going to be 5% down. That is huge. That is going to be a huge, and the reason for that is because, again, you're going to qualify for what you could afford. And if you're buying a 3-unit property and you're going to occupy one, you can use the rents from the other 2 units to help you qualify.
Yeah.
And it's going to be based on market rents. An appraiser will go out to the property. They'll do what's called a rental survey on that, and they'll see what the market rents, and that's what we'll be able to use to help them qualify for that mortgage.
And this is a really good example of the market coming up with a creative solution for the current set of problems and conditions that we're facing. And we've talked about this at the beginning of the year. We're like, you know what? Anytime a crunch happens like this or things change, creativity comes out of this because it's out of necessity. So this is a good example of that. So we have the HELOAN and HELOC are good for investing in a down payment on a place, renovation or refreshing your place, updating it, maybe giving it a little bit of facelift or taking care of deferred maintenance. I know people don't want to talk about that, but there's a lot of deferred maintenance even around our own neighborhoods here. We think, oh, these houses are all still brand new, but then I go, you know what? Wait a minute. This house was built in 2003. That's 20 years now. We're starting to come up on stuff like that. Fencing up, redone. We got to get that house roof painted, attended to. Maybe that air conditioning unit isn't sufficient. So we got debt payoff as well. Debt payoff or debt restructuring. We have also then the income portion, adding an ADU or converting your garage.
Yeah, and debt consolidation was the most important. You know, that for me is just a game changer. We just, a lot of people don't even have refinances. We just got done with 3 refinances and it all made sense. They were willing to sacrifice their 2.5%, their 3.25% interest rate to consolidate everything. You know, because that opened up monthly another $2,000 a month after paying everything off.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, you worked on those.
Yeah.
And you saw the difference there.
I want to say something to our audience that I think it bears repeating. I know we've said it in a couple different situations before, but there is something to be said about coming to us before it's too late.
Exactly.
I understand and I can relate and I can sympathize with people who go, I'm kind of embarrassed by this situation, or I'm uncertain of what I should do. I don't even want to bring this up because I have to kind of admit that, I kind of made a bad choice over here. But here's the thing. Memo's point is that home equity is at all-time highs and it's remained there, and home prices have recovered even after a little bit of a dip. The house can do some of the work. Let the house do some of the leg lifting or the heavy lifting before you are unable to. So if you are feeling like, down the road, maybe I may not be able to make my mortgage payment, while you can, and before you have any late payments, let us help you. Let us figure it out with you and come up with a game plan. It may not even result in you doing a loan, or it might. But the point is, you can come to us privately and have a conversation before it's too late. Don't corner yourself by trying to maybe uphold some sort of a posture that everything's okay, because if it's not, that is exactly the type of situations we're solving for people right now.
Exactly. I just had a client that gave me a call, and she has 2 30-day mortgage lates. Well, guess what? With conventional, you can have within the last 30 days. I mean, 30 days, within the last 12 months. Right? And then FHA works the same thing. VA is the only one that's a lot more aggressive. And that's going to be it all depends on the AUS if it takes it or not.
Yeah. And I'll be fully transparent here for the consumer. They have nothing to be embarrassed about, because this is literally our job, is to get deals done.
That's right.
We want to help you. We want to do deals. So let us help you.
Yeah. And, I also know, I mentioned before, I have a very good friend of mine who's a bankruptcy attorney. And, on one hand, there's a case to be made that bankruptcies could become rampant in the next couple of years. Yeah. The other side of that, his whole point is, but that may not be the case for homeowners. He's like, for homeowners, the bankruptcy court even will say, then take money from your house to pay off these debtors to make them whole. You can't just hold on to everything you own and you get to gain from while also holding everyone else at bay financially. So even his point is not even in our industry saying, BKs might not be as crazy for me, because guess what? People are sitting on tons of equity.
Can't have your cake and eat it there, huh, Andy?
No. Well, and here's the interesting thing, like you might be getting pinched on one side of your life, but you don't have to. So it might be a case of having your cake and eating it too. You're right.
Here's the thing: we get emotionally attached to a lot of these things, and it's material. When I bought my first home, I didn't buy it because there was equity. This was back in 2000. Actually, the market was barely recovering from that 1998 situation, that we were going through. So we're kind of recovering, but I bought it just because I wanted to own a home. And then what happened? I saw 2005-06 that home that I bought for $242. In 2004, I saw it. I sold it for $675. So I was like, no way. That's when I go into downtown Petco Park and I bought a couple condos over there. I bought another bigger home. And then I was just getting spoiled, right?
Yep.
And then I saw that there's money to be made in that. And that's why I did it. But we gotta not get emotionally attached to things. You know, luckily we're in a city where equity went up as it did, and we can leverage that situation. So all it is here is leverage.
Yeah.
Don't put yourself in a bad situation where it's not needed, because then when you don't have a job and you made a mortgage late payment, guess what, Mikey?
Yeah.
What?
Don't qualify.
That's right. Yep. Can't do
Done.
it. Yep. So come get help. Come get help while you can. We're obviously going to treat you fairly, but obviously, also call a spade a spade. Where you can get help, we're going to tell you. Where you can't get help, we're going to tell you. It's to your advantage, not to ours.